Good evening, everyone. It is March 25th, 2022. Time for episode 39 of The Last Admiral. And we pick up where we left off with the chapter entitled The South Beach. And this is where the book gets even more fun, where we have our Hollywood heroes such as Chuck Norris and James Cagney and others join us in the conflict, just as they did in life in the movies. Okay. Of course, I had to modify the names a little to protect the innocent, but you'll get the idea. Okay. Captain Norris and Cagney led 1,000 well-equipped soldiers onto the quiet beach, a mile to the south of their objective. 50 longboats carrying 20 rowing marines each crept shoreward. Everything shiny or metallic they had blackened, as were their exposed faces, hands, and anything that could reflect revealing light. Quietly, they pulled their craft onto shore and then dragged them above the high tide mark. Disembarking en masse, they made every effort to maintain silence and noise discipline. Each fighter was equipped with a sword or pair of swords, a longbow, and a quiver with a full quiver of arrows. Special teams carried other items, ropes, grappling hooks, satchels filled with flammable oils, and other items useful during castle siege. Each soldier had packs with climbing gear, water, and light food items. They had omitted excess food and survival gear to reduce weight, knowing that their necessity could only arise knowing that necessity could only arise from tragedy and failure to complete their mission. Concealing their craft at the base of the large stretch of sand dunes that rose toward the foot of the cliff, they quickly formed a defensive perimeter and began their mission. Captain Charles Norris met briefly with Captain Jarrett Cagney. Norris was fair-haired, with a strong, tapered jawline and a balanced nose that flared slightly at the bottom. A well-trimmed beard framed his face, and his hazel eyes mirrored his passionate soul. Physically fit and average in height, he walked with a flowing, deliberate gait, resulting from a lifetime of martial arts training. His voice was soft, thoughtful, and understated. His lips were full and firm, and his smile, when he offered it, was genuine. He was a man of great faith, but not in the goddess of the Doc Elfar. He fought for his persecuted countrymen, people who would suffer if he did not. I don't like it. It is way too quiet, Cagney said in his usual, tenacious way. This is the only way up the slope, Norris observed. We'll have to work our way through those obstacles. Lead the way, Captain, Cagney urged. My boys are right behind you. Cagney's voice was raspy and inflective. His lively face was intense, with prominent arched eyebrows and large blue eyes that always seemed on the verge of laughter. His red hair was wavy above a slightly creased forehead. A scrappy fighter, he learned most of his skills through hard times and a childhood spent in relative poverty. The Admiral's counting on us. Follow me, Norris commanded, single file, with 5 paces between Marines. Let's take this castle. Slipping away from the beach and into the darkness of the dunes, they began their approach, toward the lighthouse and the fortress beyond it. 300 yards from the lighthouse tower, and they encountered their first obstacle, a deep earthen ditch with a high opposite embankment and a wooden palisade. Several guards milled about on a catwalk behind the defensive works. Send up the first 5 Marines, Jarrett, Norris ordered. Once we've taken care of the guards, move everybody else up. Roger that, Cap, Cagney replied. Looking back, he used hand and arm signals to bring up their Marines. Be ready, he told the next soldier in line. Captain Marion Wayne, we all know who that is, landed on the north shore with a similar force and carefully surveyed the area. A wide, muddy river flowed into the sea to the north of their landing site, and a dense wood. And the footnotes is a ranger tactic outlined in line 6 of Robert Rogers' Standing Orders from 1757, which states, "When you're on the march, we march single file, far enough apart so one shot can't go through 2 men." It's from the United States Army Ranger's Handbook. And Roger is used in radio communications to indicate message received and understood. Okay. Captain Marion Wayne landed on the North Shore with a similar force and carefully surveyed the area. A wide, muddy river flowed into the sea to the north of their landing site, and a dense wood sheltered the lands due west of the beach. To the south, the terrain rose first with rolling dunes, and then it became more hilly until it reached the north cliff and its commanding fortress. His eyes were blue and expressive, soft, yet capable of hardness. Standing 6'4" tall, his shoulders were broad above a narrowing waist and long, capable legs. His face was tall, with a prominent forehead, a soft widow's peak, and light brown hair. His teeth were perfect, straight, and his smile was infectious. He moved with an animated quality that none might imitate. His voice was strong, bass, and resonant. "Get those boats into that wood line," he commanded. 1,000 good Marines worked fast to please him, and believing him to be a natural leader, they had nicknamed him the Earl. "It's going to be a hard fight," Captain Izzy Douglas said to him. "I can feel it." Of course, Izzy Douglas is Kirk Douglas. Izzy is his family nickname. So I went with Izzy Douglas instead of Kirk Douglas in the book. "It's going to be a hard fight," Izzy Douglas said to him. "I can feel it." Douglas was 5'9" tall, broad-shouldered, and impressive. He was square-jawed, cleft-chinned, high cheekboned and dimpled. His eyes were blue, kind-looking, and his hair was light brown. His voice had a distinctive roll to it that revealed his family and his home. "Right now I just want us to get the hell off of this beach, Izzy." "I've got my eyes on those earthworks at the base of the hill," Izzy explained. "Mind if I move forward with my team and check it out?" "Good idea," Wayne agreed. "We'll form up and be right behind you shortly." "Roger that, Captain," Izzy replied. Moving away quickly, he helped his team conceal their boats, and then they rushed southward, away from their landing area, and soon disappeared into the woods. The densely packed trees supported a thick mass of rotting leaves and vines, clawing for life on the ground beneath them. It made for a difficult march, but Izzy's troops were well accustomed to training in such conditions, and it slowed them little. Reaching the edge of the woods brought them small comfort. In front of them, a wide expanse of cleared land made their approach open and vulnerable, with no appreciable cover. Various erected earthworks blocked their path, including long, treacherous ditches, flanking mounds, hedges of buried spears, and the like. Beyond the ground defenses stood a high round bastion of 30 feet, connected to a barbican outwall, linking it to the hilltop's fortress. A single guard could be seen lazily standing watch on the tower's roof. There was no way that he could see their forces within the greater darkness of the woods, especially at this distance. "He's too far for the bow," Izzy said to his lieutenant. "We'll have to move up." "Low crawling?" he asked. "It's the only way," Izzy observed. "If we rush through these obstacles, then there's no telling how many traps that we'll find the hard way." "And then they'll know that we're here," the lieutenant stated. "Send the word back along the line," Izzy directed. "I'll take point. Have everyone fall on my lead." "Exactly." "Roger that, Captain," he replied. Izzy examined the terrain as best as he could from where he was. The excavations added a rolling quality to the field that would conceal them for a while at least, but once exposed, their discovery would be a disaster. Seeing no other way, he shifted his weapons and began the long crawl across the field. Feeling his way along, he sought out a path of hard ground and narrowly missed falling into a pit trap carefully concealed with bamboo and sand. Opening it up with a little with his hands, he tried to mark its location before moving on. No doubt they had filled the entire approach with deadly traps. Moving ahead, he pushed the pace as much as he dared, and by some miracle, he made it to the foot of the Barbican wall when the sounds of battle rang out from the south cliffs. Nocking an arrow, he kept his eyes on the tower. Just as he had expected, the guard leaned out over the wall to inspect the field. Izzy's arrow took him through the throat, and he fell over the side, falling disastrously to the ground. It made more noise than he had hoped, but after a few moments, no new soldiers appeared above him. Another 10 Marines, now with him, he removed his grappling hook from his backpack and spun it in preparation for a throw. The fortress walls were low at this point, only about 20 feet to their battlements, which made the toss easier. Testing his hold, he slung his bow and began the climb. In moments, several soldiers had joined him. The sounds of struggle grew louder from across the bay. Too soon, he thought. Too soon. And the footnote on the previous page was Bastion is a tower at the corner of a fortification, any strong defense, one who strongly upholds and supports a principle. But of course, in this book, the Bastion is the corner tower fortification. Okay. And the next chapter is entitled Norris Leads the Crew of Invincible Against the South Fort. Captain Norris and his team made it to the palisade undiscovered. The tree trunks that made up its walls were somewhat irregular, which made them climbable to Marines such as his. Like shadowy phantoms, concealed by the greater darkness around them, they scaled the fortification. The guards on the wall kept several small fires lit, spoiling their own night vision. When Charles and his troops had reached the lip of the wall together, they reached over the top and vaulted over it and onto the catwalk. They took the Firmish guards completely by surprise. Yes, there were only 5 guards on the catwalk, but there were at least another 100 lying in wait in the lower courtyard behind it. The Firmin knew that they were coming. Drawing his swords, Norris thrust at his nearest foe, and then drove a spinning back kick into his midsection that sent him flying into the host of soldiers in the lower courtyard. "Jarrett," he shouted, "it's a trap!" His comrades, on the platform with him, fenced with the enemies before them, and won easy victories due to the surprise that they had gained. But that advantage was over as soon as it had begun. And the footnote is palisade is a fence made of pointed stakes driven into the ground. Okay. Firmish troops, standing before their ready ladders, then began a massive, well-planned escalade, rapidly ascending on their left and right flanks, while others were leveling crossbows at them. Norris did the only thing that he could think of. He leaped off the catwalk and into the center of the enemy host, and some strange, magical quality that he possessed allowed him to land safely. Attacking in a fury, he tried to stay close to his enemies in order to keep their archers from firing at him. Behind him, arrows cut down 2 of his soldiers, while the other duo fared better in defense of the ladders. The surrounding gang of armored knights began to press in on him. Several of them rushed hastily forward to kill him, but he dispatched them quickly. Showing his heroic quality, the remaining throng advanced more cautiously, but he knew that his luck was running out. Just then, a hail of clay jars flew over the palisade, smashing down into the enemy's ranks. Exploding with a clinging chemical fire, it caused massive confusion and killed almost a dozen knights in the first volley. Cagney and his Marines were soon pouring over the defenses and engaging the Firmin in pitched battle. Warning fires flamed atop the battlements, and lights glowed from every window and balcony. They had expected lightly manned castles, but instead they were fully occupied and ready for war. The Marines were shock troops, prepared for a covert mission. The Firmin were heavily armored and well equipped, While they wore only the light chainmail of the Doc Alfar, highly effective against sharp cutting weapons, but much less useful against the warhammers and maces of the Firmish knights. The outset went against the Marines at first, but they soon rallied, and their numbers were greater against the Firmin's first line of attack. When half of the Firmish knights had fallen, the others began to break and run, retreating toward the castle. "Archers," Norris commanded, "don't make it easy for them." Their rigorous, highly disciplined training paid off, and soon the two captains had complete control of their detachments. The knights, slowed as they were by heavy armor, made easy targets, and many of them fell before realizing their mistake and taking cover amid the hilltop's defensive earthworks. "What's our status, Lieutenant?" And the footnote was Escalade, the act of scaling walls in a fortified place by ladders. Okay. "What's our status, Lieutenant?" 30 Marines are dead, and 5 more cannot continue, Captain." "Organize a detail and get those men back to the beachhead, Lee." "Yes, Captain," he replied. June Lee, and we might know who that is, was a physically gifted soldier with dark, lively eyes, black hair, and an attractive face. Well respected and capable of command, he moved away, picking 10 Marines at random and beginning the arduous task of carrying the wounded off the field. "The castle is fully manned," Cagney reported. "We might give them hell, but we're never going to take it." "The Admiral's going to need time," Captain Norris said, "and we can give him that. Let's show them what 2 battalions of Marines can do. When we were planning this fight, you said that we'd be tangling asses before this was over. I'm ready now. Are you?" That's a footnote item. "I've never been more ready, James." "Lead on, then," Cagney urged with a shit-eating grin. "Let's kick their brains out." And this is a historical quote, quoted from excerpts found in Wikipedia's biography, James Cagney. One day when Cagney was slightly late on set, director John Ford was incensed. Cagney cut short his imminent tirade, saying, "When I started this picture, you said that we would be tangling asses before this was over. I'm ready now. Are you?" Ford walked away, and they had no more problems, even though Cagney never particularly liked Ford. Okay, and another one is derived and quoted from an altercation between James Cagney and the director John Ford during the filming of Mr. Roberts. During a meeting between them at the airport, the director warned him that they would tangle asses, which caught Cagney by surprise. He later said, "I would have kicked his brains out. He was so goddamn mean to everybody. He was truly a nasty old man." Direct quote from Wikipedia, James Cagney. So it's a adaptation of a real event. Okay. "Move out and fire, teams," Norris commanded. "Let's dig these knights out of their holes. As soon as we are in range, I want every longbow trained on those battlements. We've got to keep them from raining hell down on our ships in the harbor." Slipping off into the dark maze of spiked pits, ditches, defensive trenches, and heavy log obstacles, the Marines spread out and engaged the enemy across a wide front. From their vantage point, they could now see overland to the northwest and down into the gigantic harbor, filled with a myriad of dark ships resting at anchor. It was then that strange, searing arrows shot out from atop the battlements and all around the inner harbor shoreline. Up and up they flew, and by what magic they did not understand, but soon, upon reaching some unknown limits in elevation, the screeching missiles exploded in brilliant balls of multicolored light that illuminated the entire area for miles around. Clearly meant as a signal, great bonfires erupted at intervals all around the city. Men-at-arms rushed back and forth in preparations for the siege. The Battle of Eitzel had begun. And that's where we'll leave off, right when the really fun action's about to start. And we'll pick up next time with Wayne and Douglas join in battle against the North Fort. So it's going to get very exciting now. We're leaving off and beginning again on 329 next time. Thank you, and have a great night.